This community is still on edge after neighbors say a woman was shot and killed in her own apartment in front of her family.
I just can't even process it, unfortunately. It just seems so sad and scary.
A 17-year-old boy, Davion Pryor, is now accused of a crime no one saw coming, murdering his mother. What could drive a young man to such a horrific act? And what role did his mental health struggles play in this devastating event? Stick around as we break down the chilling details of this case that's left the city of Chicago on edge. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth stories like this, as we explore what drives ordinary people to commit unimaginable crimes. On September 19, 2024, the 17-year-old Chicago resident shocked his family and the community when he shot and killed his mother, Tatanisha Jackson, in their South Shore apartment. Tatanisha, being the good-hearted mother she was, fought hard to counsel Davion through a difficult teenage phase. On the other hand, Davion was losing an internal battle, which few were aware of, and had a history of extremely outrageous delinquent behavior. At the time of the incident, he was on electronic monitoring, having been arrested and charged with aggravated battery and carjacking. The fateful day was like any other regular day. Davion's parents had just returned home with his younger brother, aged 7 years, who had been in school the entire day. Pryor called Jackson 10 minutes before the shooting, but it was not a threatening phone call. He called to tell her someone was drinking on their back porch. Prosecutors say as Tatanisha arrived at her home on Cornell Avenue in the South Shore neighborhood and unlocked the door, Pryor opened it from the other side. As close as a window, Davion turned around and produced a gun. The weapon was pointed directly at Tatanisha's face. There wasn't any ability to beseech logic. There was no chance to reason with him. Before anyone could process what was happening, 4 echoing gunshots went off, one after the other, and without any movement from Tatanisha, her body fell to the ground, lifeless.
The shooting happening just before 4 p.m. inside Tatanisha Jackson's home in the 6800 block of South Cornell. Police say Jackson was approached by a 17-year-old who shot her 4 times in the head.
The horror didn't end there. While Davion's father grabbed his younger son, whom he was trying to escape with from the house, he heard more gunshots. Several more gunshots rang out into the air as he ran for safety, hurriedly calling 911 with his voice shaking as he explained the situation. The first responders reached the house only to find Tatanisha dead in the very house where she had so lovingly nurtured the children. The boy she had been taking care of was now the very one who had committed the murder. In the aftermath of the shooting, the small community could not comprehend the situation. Residents commented on the unproblematic, non-aggressive politeness of their neighbors. But like in any situation, there were greater forces at work lurking from underneath that no one foresaw or wanted to forebode.
Most people who've been living on this block have been living here for a long time, so everyone kind of knows each other. So I can only imagine what everyone is.
Almost immediately, Davion was arrested as he turned himself in and was charged as an adult with first-degree murder before trial. And this is when court proceedings were giving a clearer image of this boy's life. Supposedly, his lawyers, interviewed earlier, presented him as the type of child who had a problem or two due to undiagnosed mental illness. One could only wonder how different the ending would have been if someone had done something sooner. Referring to Davion's past involvement in crime that could be classified as delinquent behavior, as well as his previous violations, including non-compliance with monitoring orders, Judge Kelly presiding in this case pinpointed Davion's high rate of relapse. He was a ticking time bomb, flaunting the law time and again. This lapse was all the more condemnable, given that the young man had been engaged in carjacking activities a few short months previously.
This is very sad and tragic to this court. The unprovoked shooting and killing of your mother in front of your father and brother.
Davion Pryor's life wasn't always marked by violence. In fact, those who knew him describe his early years as typical for a boy growing up in South Shore. However, as he reached adolescence, signs of deeper psychological struggles began to surface. Teachers and family members noticed his mood swings, sudden outbursts, and increasing isolation. Despite these warning signs, he never received a comprehensive mental health evaluation. For years, Davion's behavior was dismissed as teenage rebellion. But in reality, he may have been experiencing symptoms of an undiagnosed mental illness. These conditions, if left untreated, can significantly impair judgment, emotional control, and decision-making leading to violent and criminal behavior. A mental health evaluation was ordered for Davion, as it became clear that the teen's actions may have been influenced by deeper psychological issues. Tatanisha's death rocked not only her immediate family, but the entire community. Friends, family members, and neighbors gathered to mourn the loss of a woman whose life had been brutally cut short by the very person she had spent years nurturing and protecting.
She was kind of a short lady. She used to be on the back on her phone all the time, sitting on the back porch, just being nice.
In the dimly lit courtroom, the air was thick with tension as Davion Pryor was led to the defendant's chair, his shackled feet clanking against the tiled floor. His face was blank, eyes downcast, a stark contrast to the accusations swirling around him. Seated behind him, family members and supporters exchanged hushed whispers, their faces etched with sorrow and disbelief. As the case progressed, more details about Davion's home life began to surface. The struggles he had faced growing up and the behavioral issues that had plagued him for years all painted a picture of a boy who had fallen through the cracks. Yet none of this could justify the magnitude of the crime he had committed.
His grandmother telling us in court today he's been diagnosed with mental health problems in the past and has been off his medication.
The question on everyone's mind was simple. Why? Why had Davion taken his mother's life? Was it anger, fear, mental illness? Or had it been a moment of sheer madness brought on by years of unresolved tension? The court would eventually have to decide, weighing Davion's mental state and his prior record against the undeniable fact that he had fired the shots that killed his mother. The upcoming trial would focus heavily on whether Davion was fit to stand trial, given the questions surrounding his mental health. Experts would be called in to testify, offering their opinions on whether he understood the consequences of his actions. The defense hoped to argue that Davion had acted in a state of temporary insanity, a claim that would hinge on the results of his mental evaluation. If successful, it could mean the difference between life in prison and a more lenient sentence. But the prosecution was adamant. This was cold-blooded murder, and Davion had to be held accountable. In court, this is what an emotional Cook County Judge David Kelly had to say.
This is very sad and tragic to this court. The unprovoked shooting and killing of your mother in front of your father and brother.
In the weeks following the shooting, the community rallied around the surviving members of the family. Vigils were held in Tatanisha's honor, with friends and neighbors sharing stories of her kindness, her dedication to her children, and her unwavering belief that David could overcome his challenges. But as the candles flickered and the prayers were spoken, a darker reality loomed. The truth was that this tragedy could have been prevented. Davion had shown signs of trouble for years, trouble that had been ignored, minimized, or brushed aside, and now it was too late. As the court date approached, the media descended on the case, eager to document every twist and turn of the legal proceedings. Reporters filled the courtroom, their cameras trained on the young man who had become the face of one of the most shocking crimes in recent memory. In the end, there would be no winners. No matter the outcome of the trial, a family had been shattered, a life had been lost, and a community had been forever scarred by an act of unimaginable violence. The story of Davion Pryor is more than just a heartbreaking tale of a son taking his mother's life. It's a powerful reminder of systemic failure. Years of unaddressed mental health struggles, ignored warnings, and lack of meaningful intervention culminated in a tragedy that shattered a family and a community. Tatanisha Jackson's death symbolizes the devastating consequences of neglect, as Davion slipped through the cracks of a society that failed to act in time. As the courtroom deliberates his fate, the community mourns not just a mother, but a lost opportunity to prevent this senseless violence. This case calls for urgent change. It underscores the need for accessible mental health care, early intervention, and a commitment to recognizing the signs before it's too late. No matter the trial's outcome, the damage is done. A mother is gone, a son's life is irreversibly marked, and a community is left to grapple with the aftermath. The tragedy of Davion Pryor serves as a stark warning, one we must heed if we are to stop similar horrors from unfolding again.